in favor of House Bill 649. Thank you for allowing me to appear today. My conversation with Representative Krause started from the position of me as a practicing lawyer in Fort Worth, being in the real world. And I was commenting to him how not only me, but so many other lawyers around the entire state, primarily plaintiffs' lawyers, have to sue, file a lawsuit, just to get insurance information that you almost automatically get under request for disclosure responses right after you file the lawsuit. So many times, these lawsuits that are filed for the singular purpose of finding out if there's insurance on the other side, and number two, how much insurance is on the other side, results in the lawsuit being dismissed in so many cases right after it's filed. There's a question of whether a lot of these lawsuits are then determined to be frivolous lawsuits. The irony is that they were required to be filed to find out basic information that the law says you can find out immediately after filing a lawsuit in any event.
So, and I hate to interrupt you, I just have a quick question. So, would the suit be deemed frivolous or not based on whether the defendant has insurance or a certain amount of insurance?
No, Mr. Chairman. The fact that it was filed and then dismissed shortly after that with nothing taking place except the insurance company having to incur cost by hiring a defense lawyer. Then the defense lawyer opens the file. The defense lawyer then sends out discovery. And a lot of times, but not every time, if the case is not dismissed, then it starts into a little bit of a snowball effect that is unnecessary and could have been avoided at the very outset if we simply had a statute like at least 13 other states have on their books. Florida was referenced. Florida has had this type of statute on the books since 1982 without any adverse consequences. West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia are just some of the other states who have this type of statute in effect without any adverse consequences. I heard the gentleman to my far right say something that I think was very appropriate. The value of the case is the value of the case. A lawyer on either side cannot go out and manufacture evidence. The difference in lawyers sometimes is that some plaintiffs' lawyers are better at developing evidence than others, and some defense lawyers are better than others at developing their evidence. That's the big difference in the value of the case. The evidence is what the evidence is. I heard some questions about a concern relating to the Stowers Doctrine. That should not be a concern at all, because an insurance company can always, as it does right now, even after a lawsuit is filed, tell the plaintiff's lawyer, we need more information before we can reasonably put an appraisal of value on this case. That happens in probably the majority of lawsuits where the Stowers Doctrine becomes an issue, where there's a demand made for policy limits and there's a need for additional information by the insurance company. That wouldn't change at all with this bill. It would remain the same. I heard some concerns addressed about the sworn statement by the insurer concerning defenses that might need to be addressed. Right now, there's nothing that would, in this bill, that would prevent an insurance company from saying, we don't have enough information at this time to determine what the defenses are. And that's what I strongly suspect we would get in a lot of sworn statements, which is not a problem. It's understandable. So there's nothing in this bill right now that would prejudice any insurance company. And as far as privacy rights, I heard a reference about a stepdaughter's information being public. Well, the reality, as soon as the lawsuit's filed, that same information is obtained by the plaintiff's lawyer. So this is a case, this is a bill in favor of judicial efficiency, reduced cost, and most importantly, a reduced number of lawsuits. As an anecdotal story, last week in my office, we did a file review. Now, I'm not a high-volume lawyer by any means. I don't do hardly any advertising. I have a website. But 2 cases, I was regretfully telling my staff that we have to file a lawsuit on because the insurance adjuster refuses to tell us if there's any insurance minimum policy, which is $30,000 in a car wreck case, as we know. So because of that, that's just one example, although anecdotal, and I'm just one lawyer in one city out of 254 counties in the state of Texas. You cannot imagine the number of stories I have heard over my 39 years of practice from plaintiffs' lawyers who have regretfully had to file suit. The insurance company then hires a defense lawyer who opens the file, sends out discovery, answers whatever discovery the plaintiff's lawyer has sent, all for the singular purpose of finding out if there's any insurance at all on the other side, because as we know, about 20% of the cars on the roads and highways of Texas carry no insurance, or whether it's a minimum policy, and that would help tremendously to reduce the number of lawsuits, regardless of how they're characterized, frivolous or otherwise. It would help tremendously to reduce the number of lawsuits as well as costs relating to litigation in the state. Now, a downside is that a defense lawyer may not be able to open a file. But the upside is, in addition to everything else I've talked about, is the insurance company doesn't have to incur the cost of needless litigation. And that's really what we're talking about here. Needless litigation that at least 13 other states have taken steps. Most of these are very conservative states, have taken steps to reduce without any adverse consequences. So I would strongly urge you to consider the merits of this bill and the effects of this bill, because it will reduce many lawsuits in this state. Thank you.
All right. Members, any questions for Mr. Laird?